So in our next conversation, we want to talk about, so we're seeing the Gen Z revolution, because the Gen Z are coming out and they're saying, no, this thing is not working. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. They're saying, it's broke. We want to fix it. Okay? So it's a revolution. But then what role do we have? We, their parents, their elder brothers and sisters, and their uncles and their grandparents. What role do we have to do? Do we just sit back? Can we now, can we participate in this conversation? And that's why we've invited Wakili Paul Mwangi. He is the Chief Legal Counsel for the Azimio Coalition. Wakili, good morning.
Good morning to you.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
Good to have you here.
Thank you so much. I've not been here for a number of years now.
Yeah, Buana. Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, but it's good to be back.
It's good to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Siti, give Wakili the day's proverb.
Our proverbs for this week come from the Union of the Comoros. We determined that for the coming weeks we'll be looking at island nations of Africa. Last week we were in
Cape Verde.
Yes, Cabo Verde.
Cabo Verde.
The week before that we were in
Sao Tome e Principe.
Very good, yes. And this week we are in the Union of the Comoros. Why it's called Union? Because there are 10 volcanic islands that form this union. So they're islands and they're independent. That is a story for tomorrow. Okay. They have a president, and then they have a president of assembly. It's a very interesting country, this one. And what they are called, the things we call this. Whenever you hear of a democracy, you assume it all means the same thing. Unfortunately, it does not. No. These, for instance, this government is called a unitary presidential republic. Do you know what that means?
Unitary Presidential Republic.
In many cases, when you hear unitary, it tells you that yes, they have a president, but their form of government is more or less shared, and it's not shared quite in the way you'd think of the way people share government, whether you distinguish it as say this is a parliamentary system of government, this is a presidential. They have a president, yes. The next level of power is actually in parliament. So you hear of the president of parliament. So that's the next level of parliament. Now, can you imagine what sort of situation they must be in? Well, when you have many islands together and you want to share power, it becomes very, very difficult for you to actually decide, okay, now you've got president, this guy becomes vice president. Okay, so why does he become vice president? Why don't we have a vice president? So you get the impression that they've molded this government of theirs to suit their needs. All right, let's continue the proverb. A slippery person is not a king.
A slippery person is not a king. Paul, what's your interpretation of this? When you heard City giving us that proverb the first hour, we were holding our papers because we were just about to start looking at the headlines in the papers and the headline in the Standard.
I guess it means you have to have a stand on critical issues, and that you must stick with those. But it's also said that you must be able to change, adapt. So it cannot be 100% that you cannot be static also.
It can't be too static.
Can't be too static, so that also has to have some exceptions.
You must have a balance.
Yes, okay. And sometimes you might be required to change entirely.
Okay. What are we seeing in the country? Are we seeing leaders who are changing entirely, or are we seeing leaders who are, adjusting to the times?
We are not adjusting. The citizenry is adjusting. People are really beginning to understand what are the changes that are being required, and it's more. First, even before you get to the nitty-gritty of the changes that are required, it's a change of mindset and how we are supposed to perceive our republic and the rules that govern us. And I think that change is happening. But it's too drastic for the politicians, and therefore we are not having sufficient change among the politicians because it's very disruptive for them. So they are not adjusting well to this.
Do you think that actually So what's happening with the citizens? What is this drastic change? We're calling it a revolution. What is this revolution thing? Are the citizens actually aware of what they're asking for, what their demands are, what their expectations are?
What they're asking for is the same thing that citizens have always wanted. So they're not saying anything new. They're not introducing new, which is very different than if you were talking about, like when we were talking about change of systems and you're saying we're going to stop single-party state and go to multi-party state. That was a really drastic change because we were getting rid of, we are bringing totally new concepts in terms of political governance. This time we are not being told to adopt anything new. In fact, Gen Z is saying, implement the constitution. Let's follow our constitution. And this is a constitution that was passed, when they were toddlers, literally. That's when we passed this constitution. They've met this constitution, and that's what they're fighting for. So they're not introducing anything new to us, but they're challenging us to live to our own mantras, to our own ethos that we saw, that we want to adopt.
Okay, I mean, it just, as we look at how things have been playing out, and then of course we hear different remarks coming from different sides, it may just kind of, give a convoluted message now. And in as much as the remarks coming from the president over the weekend may have angered a number of people, there's something that he's saying here that I think we need to try and open up a little bit. And would it mean, essentially, that without support from an external party, that the very things that are being said, implement the constitution, do what you're supposed to do, rid the country of corruption, would it mean that without help or without external support, that these messages would not come from the protests that we hear?
In terms
would it mean, the president is saying very clearly that what we are seeing today is being supported externally. But we're saying that there's a message that's coming clearly from these protests. Would we imagine that only because there's some kind of support, that's the reason why these demands are being made?
I don't think he's saying that because he believes it, but there is a need to delegitimize this clamor. Because if you legitimize it, then it becomes something that will never go away. And it is too disruptive for the political class. So they will have to find every way to make sure that it doesn't happen, because the day this becomes a norm, the day we all accept that this is the way we must start living, it's going to disrupt too many people's careers, very many political careers will just end. And, we are getting to a point where it is becoming almost that if you have any skeleton anywhere, don't ever touch public office. Don't even try. Because Gen Z will tear you apart. It'll expose you. So that's very disruptive for anybody who wants to be in the political class. So my reading is that the president needs to delegitimize this and therefore push it off the table as part of the discussion, of the national discussion.
Where things are currently, can he afford to do that?
He believes he can, but in my reading, this is not going anywhere. We are talking about a generation that has a totally different mindset. They're not going to leave the country. They are, in fact, as we grow, as the years go, they will occupy more and more of the generational space as we go. So whether we do something about it now, whether it takes 5 years or it takes 10, they will. And more of them are coming into the space in the millions. As we leave. If you look at the numbers of demographics, the people between above, say, the age of 50 in this country, we're
minority.
We're the minority. We're 20% or so, even less. So these people that we're ignoring are actually the country. So how long before they're all over the place? They already are. So we are just, I think, delaying the day of reckoning. But the day of reckoning is here.
It's space holding.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, but there are certain things that are being asked for. Excuse me. One of them, the biggest one being corruption. We see corruption across board, and that there's a demand to say that you must deal with this thing. And if you don't deal with it, this is the problem that we are seeing today. Why would we have a situation whereby, again, going back to the comments that were made over the weekend, You asked me to do this and I did it. You asked me to do this and I did it. I said I wanted to meet with you and then I came to the spaces where you were and then you left. We hear things like this across board, and he said it's not possible, if we can for a moment, be in the position in which the president is today and say, well, you've asked me for this and I've given. I've opened it up a little bit. I've asked to meet with you, but I do not know who you are. He said this very many times. I do not know who you are. I do not know if you have a leader. I don't know where to find you. I came where you said I should come. I did not find you. This is the reasoning that he's giving. How do we play in that space now with what he's saying?
And this is why I say a lot of these statements are being made so as to delegitimize the clamor. Because what I hear them on the other saying is, what are we discussing? Your everything is on the table. You know what to do. We have talked about corruption. What do we really need to talk about for you to start a credible fight against corruption? What do we need to talk about when we say we want action taken on police brutality? It's not a question of negotiation. There are things on the table that are there to be done. And I'm looking at this with an example of we've taken them to the fruit tree. There are very many low-lying fruits that we can pick for them. Instead, we are saying, no, bring the ladder. Let's pick those ones up there. And they're saying, no, why we first begin with the fruits up there? Can we first just pick these ones that we can reach? And those are the ones they're saying, especially if you can pick these ones, we will now begin to think that you're being honest about addressing our concerns. But they're saying that there's an honesty threshold, which he has not passed.
There's something that you said, Paul, at the beginning, that, it appears there's what the citizens have always wanted, always expected of their leaders. And they're raising those questions now more directly and saying the leadership is failing and the leadership is not addressing the issues. And then the leadership appears to be coming together, all of them. Those in government, those in opposition, all leaders in parliament, and they seem to be behaving the same way in the response to this clamor by the citizens. When they met at the steps of KICC and they said, all right, so one of the things that had been demanded was IEBC. So here we are signing IEBC. As you all know, it's a product of negotiations, and we are here then. Then the next phase is now going to be talks. People reacted against the call for talks. And the leaders then, including your Azimio leader, Raila Odinga, and the others, were caught here between an area that they thought that they knew, and then they realizing that they don't really know this area that they're in, where talks have been rejected by the people. And they're still coming back to say, no, but we need to find a way of talking. And the people are saying the same thing you're saying. Talking is ladder. Here are fruits. Pick fruit.
Do.
Start eating.
Do.
Yeah, just do.
Just do. So is it that all leaders, all of them, are actually not hearing what's being said?
The word talks and the unfortunate word dialogue it's now become a dirty word in the political lexicon. But it's meaning different things. At some point, it means that there is going to have to be some kind of engagement, which will have to come at some place, because all this has to culminate towards something that's long-lasting. But it's also being used by others to be an opening into entering some kind of
political deal.
So what I personally understood Raila Odinga to be saying is that somewhere along the way we are going to have some form of engagement to find out how we solidify this. But what people heard was something different. What they heard is that we are going to strike these political deals. And his words were also taken by those who want those political deals. And they say, no, even the boss has agreed.
We are talking.
And therefore, let's go ahead with our deal.
So you're saying the people misunderstood Raila in the first time?
I do know that his position has been and was, even when he said so, that we must have a way to have an engagement towards the end of this somewhere. He might have jumped the gun in that this might not have been the appropriate time to bring up that issue. But so down this road, that issue will still crop up somewhere.
But Raila was not talking about down this road. At the steps of KICC, the president said Monday. Raila said Monday.
Yes, and I say that because I know
They were all talking about, next week we are starting talks. 150 delegates, 50 of them youth. The other 100 to be divided between this and the other. They were all clear on the talks.
Yes, and the question was to what end? And I think that is the problem. To what was the objective of these talks? Is the objective of these talks so that we end up with a political deal, or is the objective of these talks so that we find out where the end game to this is going to be?
According to the words of the president, it's the objectives of the talks is so that we end up with a deal. It's formation of a broad-based government. Those are the ones that the
and I
president
think
used.
at some point now, and even the current developments are showing that the misunderstanding is becoming clear.
The misunderstanding was even in proposing the talks, because it's like Raila Odinga and the president decided that this is what they wanted, and the people they were deciding for had completely other ideas.
Yes.
So how was this even going to begin? How are we going to begin on this path of finding a way forward when it is you who has made the decision, instead of asking, okay, we have a situation here, how would you like us to handle it? See, they were going about business in the manner they are accustomed to. And here's a group who have shown with great clarity that is not the way they want to do their business.
That's why I'm saying that what is happening is very disruptive to the political class, because they are being asked to do things in a way that they're not used to.
It's odd though, because if I look at the history of Raila Odinga, disruption is something he's quite familiar with.
He has been very disruptive.
Extremely disruptive. This is not new territory to him. It's something he understands with great clarity. In fact, understands it better than literally almost all Kenyans.
But this one, nobody. This is a totally different space. Nobody got this memo. That's one thing we must all agree.
But Paul, think about it for a single second. I was thinking about it over the weekend, and I was thinking about how it is that groups of individuals that led up to the formation of Ford, who knew full well what it is that was likely to happen to them if they opposed the government, went ahead anyway and suffered as a result of it. They knew. It's not that they didn't know. They had seen it, but they continued. Now, in many ways, the disruption was actually in their own personal lives, because they suffered personally and their family members also suffered. Now, when we come to this, okay, that brought us to the space where we are in, where we actually now have in our constitution the space to do the very things that were being fought for then. You can actually do it without fear. Then you hear the utterances of the president yesterday, and you're thinking, ay. Well, Kwani, what are we doing? Are we going back? Are we losing all the gains we have made all this time, so that when a call for change is brought about, instead of pausing to say, what really am I hearing? Maybe I've moved and I misheard. Instead of taking a step backwards, what you retreat to is the very thing we supposedly moved away from completely. And now it's being reintroduced.
The question is, how did we ever really move away from it? We thought we did.
We did.
We really never did, because even how we've solved our problem, that's why I'm saying this is something that's disruptive in an entirely different way.
Paul, I say we did.
Hold on. In 1992, what happened is we went to the streets, we demanded Section 2A, we did everything. Then we went and sat. Moi said I will remove 2A, which he did. But after that, then we went and sat, and we had to correct the Electoral Commission. In every time that we have made changes in this country, we start with a crisis, then we go and sit. That has been the modus operandi everywhere.
And the status quo keeps creeping back.
Yeah, and that's how the status quo keeps creeping back. Gen Z has known that's why we don't move. And they have said, no, this time we are not doing it that way.
You know where
But the guys they are telling don't know any other way. And they have to relearn now.
Actually, they do. They are just reluctant or defiant. All the things that you say are true, Then we did something which was unthinkable. We got a new constitution. Now, we now have it in written form that this is the way to go, so that when someone abrogates it, it's clear what you're doing.
Yeah.
There's no ambiguity. So when you say this is what should be done, we don't argue. We simply go and say, Nani, this is what it says. This is the manual of operations.
And I think, City, the issue here is that we have a new constitution in letter. We have a new constitution in spirit with the people. We have a new constitution in letter and not in spirit with the political class.
Yes.
Because they believe that they brought the constitution. It's their thing. They wrote it. They didn't really read about it, so they wrote it. They know, yeah, that thing says some these things here and there. But they believe because they wrote it, they can bend it.
Yes.
And that's where the arrogance comes in. So now, with this whole disruption coming from the other side, they are the ones who were on the other side anyway, the other time. And they got this constitution. So they know the full answers to this thing.
So they think.
So they think. So they're not hearing it.
And maybe
They're stuck on that end. Raila yesterday released a statement in the morning. And he said, to the young, resilient generation of our nation, I'd like to address you this morning. I agree that justice must come first before any talks. Towards this end, I stand with you that there must be a compensation for every victim of police brutality, dismissal of all protest-related cases, release of all abductees and those in jail, resolution of outstanding healthcare, that's healthcare workers' welfare, and education, JSS teachers' grievances, a reverting of our public healthcare insurance back to NHIF, and discarding and chief prosecution of all security sector perpetrators who facilitated atrocities on peaceful Kenyans. Once these issues are resolved, we can focus on a national conversation and conducted transparently in a neutral venue. In my proposal, the representatives of this convention should come from various sectors, including the youth, government, religious leaders, healthcare professionals, lawyers, and teachers. We must come together to discuss national and constitutional critical issues touching on good governance, skyrocketing cost of living, eradicating tribalism, fighting corruption, debt and fiscal management. To the young people of Kenya, you all must know that I am deeply moved by your dedication to the cause, and I believe a structured dialogue will bring the reforms you are fighting for and safeguard Kenya for your future. He released this statement yesterday about 10:20 a.m. And the response on X was all just telling him, boss, what are you now telling us? Were you saying talks? Now you're saying you're still saying talks, but you're quoting it with other things. You've seen, of course, you're on X, you're active on X, Paul.
Yes.
You've seen the responses here.
Yes, I have.
What do you think the Gen Zs and others who have commented are saying?
First, as I said, none of us got this memo. The whole society was taken in. The way Gen Z has come with this, the way they think, the way they do their things, I don't think it's anything anybody would have anticipated. We got a peak view of it from Wasingishu when they were complaining about the scholarships.
Yeah.
But everybody's adjusting at their own time. Along the way, we are beginning to understand that we are going, first, that this is their fight. And they are not asking us to guide them. I mean, to lead them. They are saying, we have our program, we have our demands, and we have our vision. And that's what we want to implement. And to me, we have, as older generations, we have 4 roles to play in this. The first role is that we need to understand. And when I say we need to understand, we need to understand the who and the why. We need to understand who is Gen Z, because sometimes they are being painted as if there were some guys who came from Uganda, some refugees from South Sudan. We need to understand that Gen Z is part of this society. They are either your younger brothers, or they're your nephews, or they're your children, or they're your grandchildren. And that when you see them on the streets, they're coming from our homes to go to that street. They're not coming in from some refugee camp. So first we need to understand who these are. Then we need to understand why they are doing this. And that we need to listen and know what their frustrations are, and what they can see, how the kind of future that they want to live in, why they cannot see it in the current circumstances. That is a question of understanding. The second thing that we need to do is that we need to support. And by support, first, majorly moral support. And we must refuse to be railroaded into this societal condemnation of Gen Z, which the government is trying to do. And we need to tell them that we understand where they are. We need to give them the moral support for it. And as I said, they're all coming from our houses. They will need your support. They will need money to take the tax. They need money to buy their water. They need money to buy flags. They need money to treat each other. And they must feel that we are there supporting them. The third thing that we must do is that we must protect. We must remember that these are our children, our younger brothers. So we must be able to tell the regime that these are not strangers. These are our relatives. These are our children. And we will not countenance them being dealt with as if they're enemies. Yeah. I felt very sorry that a lady did not see her son for almost a month, and that she was all over talking about it, asking people to help her, and I didn't feel like at least those who are her age mates, those who are her co-parents, I didn't feel we responded to her. Only for her child and everybody thought the child must be dead, and just for the child to come up almost a month later. So I think we need to be more protective towards Gen Z. And then lastly, we must be there to guide. It might not be now, but the time will come. We know we've lived here. They have never dealt with a state. We have dealt with the state. We know how it was. So at some point they will need guidance.
Yeah.
And we need to tell them, these guys, go here, this is what they do, if you go there. So at some point they will need guidance. At some point, this thing is going to get to a place where they will become even more politically engaged. Even at that time, none of them have been in this field. So from different circles, they will need guidance. And to me, those are the 4 practical things that I think we should concentrate on doing.
Thinking of this, I think the guidance bit, this seems to be where we are jumping. We are starting from the end of guidance and then coming backwards into protecting them, supporting them, and understanding them. Because the one thing that, as adults, maybe that's what we're used to doing. The first thing that you want to see is when you see your child doing something, you want to tell them, okay, so do it this way, do it the other way, before you even ask, what exactly do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? Before you understand what they are up to, you look at them and you assume that you can see what they're up to. Because, I'm the adult. Yeah, I know everything, right? Maybe that's a mistake we're making.
In practical terms,
we are starting at the guidance point before we even go to understanding and supporting.
But even at the guidance point, we guide children. It is at the stage of Gen Z that they fight back. And even in our homes, there's an age where your children get, and you stop the guiding, and you leave them alone. You don't shake, you don't run away, but you are always there because you know something can go terribly wrong here. So you're always on standby. But we've learned that when you're dealing with this age group, even in your own home, that they are coming out into the spaces. They want to take control, and we allow them. And you cannot keep holding their hand and it's okay, fine, it's your do. Go along with it. But at some point, maybe when they will need you, you make sure you're always hanging around somewhere on the sidelines to be of assistance.
You know what I find strange is how it is that we have never cultured ourselves into asking younger people what help they would actually like. We assume we know what they like because we all take our cue from our backgrounds and from our own experiences and from our own childhood, so to speak. And yet we forget that the manner in which we brought up our children is not quite the way we were brought up. So their understanding of the world is definitely different from our understanding of the world. And then there is the age in which we live. It's called the communication age. Now that changes everything. Where previously the greater influence in our lives was our parents and those who lived around us and our relatives, they have the whole world to influence them. Simply because of the communication age. So the voices they listen to, your voice has serious competition. And your voice is when they're at home. most of the time the voices they listen to are not your voice. They probably listened to it when they were much younger, but at this age, the voices that they are likely to move towards have very little to do with you as a grown-up, as an older person, even as an older brother. So how do you then gravitate and mature? Because now it is a question of, are the parents willing to grow up? Because, yes, when you have children, you assume children will grow up, but parenting requires you to grow up also. Are the parents willing to grow up and to keep up with their children? Because if we don't keep up with them, then they won't be the lost generation. We will be the lost generation because they have all the time in the world ahead of them. Our time is short. So when we talk of Gen Z and we talk of what they're doing, are we willing to understand them on their terms? Not on our terms, not with our reference point.
Are we? Okay, let's start with our leaders. Those guys.
Yeah, that was going to be my question actually, because if we're saying that there needs to be some kind of support, even from the leadership that is currently existing, what do we see now? That there's lots of horse trading going on right now, because there's a possibility that a new cabinet will be formed and that their names will be included in it. So if we're talking about support for a current movement, and on this other side we see that folks are trying to form another government, where is that support? That everybody suddenly now is interested in making sure that their name is on the list for those that will be floated then for vetting in Parliament to form part of the cabinet. And one of the things that we heard before is that no, absolutely not. Anybody who has soiled hands should not make part of the government. It doesn't matter which side of the political divide you're being drawn from. But how does that look like in terms of support if the very leadership that we speak of today, number one, half of them are hiding. I don't know where they're hiding because they're afraid to be called out. Others don't know the left from the right because, yes, they do have soiled hands and they're not sure. Others want to make sure that political expediency is front and center of anything that they do. So where is that support from leadership today? Where are the leaders who are asking or insisting that the Constitution be implemented, or that are insisting that corruption be a thing of the past, or that are insisting that the president actually does the right thing? Where are they?
Look, we need our politicians to stop being politicians for a while and start being parents. We need the president to stop being president for a while and start being a father, and start listening to this generation, not as their president, but as a father. To care for them as a father, to protect them as a father. And then the picture will be different to him. But if you start treating them as if they're a political party, because that's now, we've now started treating them from a political perspective rather than from a social perspective. If we start looking at really them in sociology and realizing that this is the future, for real, you don't know, sometimes we say like it's a joke, but for real, these are the guys who are coming to take over the country. What kind of country do you want them to create? Even for the work that you do today, if you, why spend all the time putting all these things and somebody will come and trash it? It's like building empires, economic empires, and then your kids are not interested. Yeah, they'll just come and ruin it. So that's why I say the perspectives with which the politicians are handling this needs to change, and it needs to be more sociological than political.
I actually feel that the president needs to continue being president, but it needs to change his politics. The opposition leader needs to continue being who he is, but he needs to change the politics. Because if they change the politics, they're used to adversarial politics, where if you hear any kind of political clamor or noise, you know it's coming from the other person who is opposing you, and what they're after is to dislodge you from the position that you're in. If they stop doing that and they just look at the Constitution and say, we're actually being told that what we are doing is implementing the Constitution, and we have not been truthful in implementing the Constitution in the last 14 years, and now are being called to order and being told, here is the Constitution, implement it, then maybe they start seeing things differently. Because the danger of seeing these things as, it's my children speaking, they still have that mentality. It's the kids who are speaking. So they'll talk, and then I'll still come and tell them, so this is how we're going to do, okay? So you've talked. You want to change this school from this school to the other school? Okay, yeah. So this is what's going to happen. You're going back to that school. Because school fees, because distance, because delinquency, because this and the other. And I'll have a reason why you must go to this school.
The different perspective now is the generation that you're dealing with. And then when I say that, like the way the president talked yesterday, no parent of a Gen Z can say that to his kids. You can't. You're not going to...
Not anymore.
Not anymore. You cannot stand up to your 25-year-old son or 25-year-old daughter and tell, something, enough is enough. Tell your dad. Really. they cannot even understand how you can. So that's why I'm saying that that's political talk. And that's not going to work. And you must understand that when they're asking these things, they're not asking these things so that they come and take over leadership from you. And that they're not a political party.
Yeah.
They just want a different way of doing things, and not for them. Because look at, for instance, the question, issues of accountability because loans are being taken.
Yeah.
These loans mature in about 10 years. We will not be paying those loans. Many of us will be largely out of being economically productive. The people who are clamoring now, this is the time they're going to be 36, going 40.
Yep.
They are the ones who are going to pay these loans. They're the ones who are going to have to be taxed to pay these loans. So it is their concern if we are taking loans that they are going to come and pay and they do not know what those loans are doing for them now.
I also think, and I'm not putting you on the spot here because you are senior counsel for Azimio, you speak very closely with Raila, but I looked at this statement and I still feel that it's still piecemeal response. And this is what I mean. So, for example, when you say the first things that we need to deal with is compensation of every victim of police brutality, yes. Dismissal of protest-related cases, yes. Release of those who have been who are in jail, of those who've been abducted, yes. Resolution of outstanding healthcare. That's intern doctors go to school. Go for internship. JS teachers who are clamoring for permanent and pensionable terms, get them. Prosecution of all security sector perspectives of perpetrators, yes. But then there's a bigger issue, Paul, and you've talked about it here for the last 1 hour. The bigger issue that is being pushed for here is greater accountability. Yes. And the issue of public participation and the issue of openness and an open governance system. And these are things that can be done in one morning. I don't think these are the issues that people are clamoring for today. They did not go to the streets so that they say we released those who were arrested yesterday. They went to the streets saying we want better transparency. We want a government that's responsive to the people. We want to know if you have rejected the finance bill and there's a supplementary budget for that's cutting government expenditure. We want to see where are you cutting this expenditure. We want you to cut back on your budget. We want you to tell us how you're forming the next government.
Keep us aware.
We want to be involved. We want to. That's it. It is not about releasing those who've been. If those ones are released today, then tomorrow we can go and start having the bombers talks. No.
I don't take what Raila said to be that he was rapporteuring the conversations. And therefore we say, that's wrong rapporteuring because you didn't capture everything. That was his contribution to the conversation. It did not remove anything from the table. What's on the table is already on the table. He added other things to that conversation. He did not add them by way of rapporteuring. So I do not think we should take his words as if they meant that there are things that should be ignored or that should be removed from the table. That was his contribution to the conversation.
The Latin America, in the era of dictatorships in that particular continent, was marked by brutality that was almost unparalleled. The things that those dictators did, I want to think of Argentina. Talking about the 70s and the 80s and the things that happened there and the atrocities. It was 1974 to around 1980, 84 there. 22 to 30,000 people were either killed or disappeared. And it was assumed that even as new governments came in, the status quo was more or less the same. There were tokenisms. In 2024, people who are then old men, you're talking about a generation. I've jumped to 2024.
Okay.
Children whose parents disappeared or were killed in that period were now adults. They were grown-ups. 11 individuals were given life sentences for crimes committed in that era. Among them, there were policemen, politicians. They were still alive. Point to note, people who are doing things now and think they're protected by the state, this regime will end, another one will come in, newer people, younger people will come into power, and they'll revisit these things. People assume that you get away with these things. You never do. You only imagine that you do. Because if you have a constitution, and it is clear what it states, when you go against it, it's also clear. Now, you may try to cover up, you may even try to water down the constitution. But we're already seeing signs of it where the judiciary actually stands up and says, actually, this is wrong. You're not going to do this. Stop this. I don't know how many times we have to miss opportunities for those in political leadership to understand that the time when you could just plunder the state as you saw fit, that era has ended. I don't know why they can't see it. So when people who are even in the opposition seem to be clamoring to be ministers, it tells me that politicians who are of that era haven't changed at all. Not one iota. They are exactly where they were. They still believe that political power has to do with how much or an opportunity for you to plunder as much as you can. Now, these younger people who are our children, our younger brothers, our nephews, nieces, they have seen this because they've grown up in a house and they're saying, we don't want this anymore. This is it, enough. They've understood it is their resources, it is their well-being, it is their future which is being plundered. They've figured it out. And we figured it out, but we were quiet. And in our quietness, we became complacent. So we joined the merry wagon. And what we did was we just lowered the threshold for corruption. We accepted this one is okay corruption, this one is not very okay corruption. And that's what we've been doing. Now, this government doesn't seem to understand whatever's built up over many generations, people have reached here. And unfortunately, they will not get away with it. They think they will. They won't.
It's a day of reckoning.
It's here. I mean, I don't know why they can't see it. It's actually here. And it's beckoning us and it's telling us, why don't we change? Change by its very nature will overwhelm you if you don't embrace it.
Let me tell you one admirable thing that is with the Gen Z generation. A friend of mine has a child, is a lawyer, who wanted to consult on something. So they came and asked. And then so they were telling the child, oh, by the way, and if you need more, I'm available. And they said, no, I don't want I don't want to think like you. They say, we have our own lawyers.
Wow.
So please keep away. If we need to hear anything, we will listen to the lawyers of our generation because they look at law through our eyes.
Yeah.
And that's a very, very profound statement that has been made there. Paul, thank you very much for joining us today. We look forward to having you again soon and for more conversations.
Thank you very much.
Paul Mwangi is the Chief Legal Counsel for the Azimio Coalition. He has been in these spaces for many years, in the clamor for constitution, for better governance, and you're still at it. And now your children have taken over.
Then we are happy.
Yes.
And we must, as I said, we must support them.
Yes. Sit back and support.
Yes.
Okay? That's what we're supposed to do.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.